Okay, quick music disclaimer here. I do not own the rights to this music, which belongs to the rightful owner, who is the intoxicating mind of Dr. Frankenstein. So he made my intro and my outro, and I hope you guys enjoy. Check them out on Spotify and YouTube, and no copyright infringement is intended. Have a good day.
A clear choice of good versus evil, of right versus wrong.
Twisted Tales.
Welcome back, folks. Now, my next little tale here, I'm going to talk about Glamis Castle. So, this one here is a viewer request from my friend Liss, and she does podcasts too. So she does Ouch, Was That a Ghost podcast? So, lots of spooky stuff, everything on there. It's really good actually. I mean, she has stuff that I never heard of, and I have stuff that she's never heard of. So, I mean, we go back and forth with different cases here and there. She'll hand me some stuff, I'll give her something. Like Lobster Boy. I mean, that's going to be coming out in the works pretty soon. So, I'm going to post her show in the end of the description of mine. So, I mean, you guys want to check it out, you're more than welcome. Toss up a rating on her, get her going, right? So this one's for you, bud. So, thanks for the episode here and helping me out with this podcast stuff. Let's dive into some details and a little history, folks. So, Glamis Castle. Now, it was built in the year 1372. I mean, this castle's been around for centuries, so, I mean, it's seen a few moments in history, I'm sure. I myself, I know nothing about this castle. Nothing about who lives there, current, past life, anything. And this is all new to me, and I hope I cover it properly for you guys here. Now, the castle still proudly stands today as part of the Lyon family since around the 1400s, and the castle was also childhood home to Elizabeth Angela Bowes-Lyon, the youngest daughter of the family, and the ninth of 10 children. Now, her parents were Claude George Bowes-Lyon, that was her father, and Cecilia Nina Bowes, that was her mother. So just to give you guys, a little bit of a royal tour here, I mean, the castle's just a straight-up piece of history. So, although it's a little lesser known to me, I mean, that's why I wanted to be as factual as I could with this. And I'm gonna talk about, some spooky stuff in here, so there's a lot of stuff that goes on in the bad boys of these walls here, so. The castle, since the day it was built, has belonged to the Lyon family. Now, that's a long time for, from the 14th century till today. I mean, that's 652 years? 652-year-old structure, folks. Imagine all the crazy stuff that went on between there. I mean, now, between then, gotta be some stuff. So let's see if I can find something. I mean, with all the death that went on there normally, and naturally, unnaturally, I mean, I'm sure that we can find something to dive into here. So this tale here will start off with a man named Alexander Lindsay IV, the Earl of Crawford. He was born 1423, and he died 1453. And apparently the guy was just a prick. I mean, difficult, and he's more so known for his brutality, especially when he was drunk. And he wasn't known to most by, his birth name, though, because we called him, Alexander Lindsay. He was known as Earl Beardy. So the Earl, he was a medieval Scottish nobleman. He was the son of David Lindsay and Marjorie Ogilvy. Now this little tale here involves Earl Beardy coming over for a game of cards. He was with a couple of his buddies and he was sitting around getting drunk. And that's pretty much just what he liked to do. He'd go over to Glamis Castle for some drinks and get drunk. But that particular night, it was the Sabbath, which is a day for rest and worship. Now the card game would have to stop at the stroke of 12 bells, or it would just be an unholy gesture to continue on with the game. Now to this the Earl said, "I'll play until doomsday," and as that Saturday was coming to an end, he dismissed his servants from the room, and the card game carried on. Now 5 minutes before midnight here, The guard made like a last attempt to kind of bring the Earl to his senses so he could stop his sinning ways. But the Earl didn't listen to reason, and he replied, "I'll play with the devil himself." Now 5 minutes later, the bell towers had chimed, and that was it. It was midnight. One moment after those chimes had gone off, there was a knock at the door. A tall man walked in dressed in all black, and he asked to join in on the card game. Now the game continued on, and throughout the night you could hear loud cursing, shouting. It all just echoed right through the castle hallways. The guard was posted outside the door. He was too terrified to move from the things that he heard inside the room, let alone, wanting to open up the door to see what was happening inside. It was just a restless night for all involved. But upon the break of dawn, the guard went back to check on the Earl to see if he needed anything, and he noticed the Earl and his buddy, and the gentleman, still up playing cards. When the guard walked into the room, he noticed that the men playing cards were engulfed in a giant ball of flame. The new player was none other than the devil himself, and that the Earl and his buddy had been tricked by the devil in exchange for their souls. So it's said that the ghost of Earl Beardy can still be seen around the castle, playing a card game just trying to win back his soul so he can escape the fiery pits of hell. Pretty cool stuff, huh? Now next up, we're going to talk about an heir to one of Scotland's noble titles. Now this guy has like a little tragic tale here. It's said that he's been locked up into a secret chamber within the family castle. Now this one here is about Thomas Leon Bowes. He was born October 21st, 1821, and he died October 21st, 1821, the same day as stated by official records. Now some say that the child was born with deformities, and the child was born stillborn, but some believe that the child didn't die. Now the meaning stillborn means the death or loss of a baby during birth, or delivery, I should say. And it's said that the baby is so horrendous, it was just the talk of the town. Now it had a barrel for a chest. It was hairier than any beast known to man, and only 3 people at the castle knew of its birth, and they were told to take care of the deformed child. Now if any of the 3 had died during the child's care, another would be appointed. Now the child was put into a private chambers deep within the castle. The child was left in care of the 3 until its death. Lord of the castle had bricked up the private chambers, just to make sure that nobody could ever discover the chambers. But there were some that searched for the room. Everybody was curious. Now, one time when the Lord of the castle was away, Lady Glamis was kind of curious, so she ended up searching for the room with her friends that she had over for a gathering. Now they began to hang up towels on each of the castle windows, but when they checked from the outside of the castle, they noticed a towelless window. So they discovered the secret room that had been bricked up. Now upon the Lord's return there that exact night, he found out about his wife snooping around, and she left, never to return. So folklore goes that the monster at Glamis still roams about the castle. And there were tons of stories that, passed through the town there. Everybody was talking about the death of the infant. But questions did circulate around. More so it was questions about how there was no gravestone. So that right there aroused suspicion. And the family was just hush-hush about the whole secret newborn thing. There was a workman who stumbled upon the secret chambers of the child there one time. He was snooping around after hearing the rumors. So he popped over to the oldest part of the castle, and he seen a disfigured Thomas. Now once the royal family found out about this, they bribed the worker with some money. They told him not to disclose what he had just seen, and he left for Australia. And these rumors about the secret chamber, everybody wanted to find out about it. Every Victorian era guest that rolled up there searched for it. They'd go to a party, they'd sneak off. Everybody just wanted to be the very first to discover the disfigured heir. Because, that kid was the heir to the throne, and he was locked up. The chambers were really secretive. It was only 3 people kind of knew about it. That was the Earl, his wife, and the estate manager. Even the people that discovered the chambers were either paid off or threatened to keep it a secret. Now, some estate papers and architectural plans at Glamis Castle, they reveal a small space adjacent to the charter room of the main tower there. Now, a record from Lord Ernest Hamilton, this states that he discovered a secret passage within the castle. Now, the entrance was hidden from under a trap door on the dressing room floor. Now, this room was known as the Blue Room. Other tales say that the chamber's near like a chapel, and it's hidden behind a bunch of ancient stonework. So, it's just crazy. Like, a lot of travelers throughout the years that visited the castle, they have reported like feeling like an uneasy presence while in or around certain rooms. And that stories of Thomas still haunt Glamis Castle to this day. So, I mean, it's still a big thing to get talked about. And it's just a little known fact, like, the castle has a room called the Hangman's Chamber. This is where a butler had once hung himself. Well, I guess he couldn't do it twice. So he now haunts the room that he died in. And when people look up at the window there, they can see his face in the window at certain points during the night. There's also tales of chambermaids that have disappeared throughout the courtyard. And during the night, strange knockings and appearings, like they can be seen and heard during the night. Now the castle itself, I mean, it has oodles of stories here. Like, there's a ghost of a little African boy that was treated very badly by staff that spun around the castle grounds. So he's been seen sitting on like a stone seat over by the Queen Mother's bedroom on more than one occasion. So like I said, he was treated unfairly, and this was around the 18th century. Now, after the boy's death, servants that had been known to walk that hallway have been known to trip, and when they fall and get up and whatever, they can hear a laugh from a child running down the hallway. It's also reported that people that have slept in the rooms around the hallway, they kind of remember their clothes being tugged at, or like they wake up to somebody pulling on their clothes. So that right there is a little boy. Now that room was actually made into it was renovated into a bathroom, so they kind of just hoping this would get rid of the spirit or whatever. And like the Great Castle, I mean, it has tons of tales here. Like there's one here about a haunted chamber. So this one goes back to 1486. Now, members of the Ogilvy clan, they were seeking shelter from the Lindsay clan, so they wanted to hide out and seek shelter at Glamis Castle. To which Lord Glamis was like, yeah, boys, come on in. So he allowed them to hide in the secret chamber. Unbeknownst to them, Lord Glamis was actually a friend of the Lindsay clan, and he had locked them in the chambers and left them to die. Now that room is now boarded up, but you can hear the wails and the cries of the spirits from behind those walls, which still brings like a little bit of uneasiness for those that approach that room in that general area. Another tale here is the tongueless woman. Now, her spirit can be seen wandering the grounds, and when she's seen, she shows her wounded face and spits blood from her mouth. She can often be seen glaring from a barred window of the castle. So tale goes here is that she was a serving maid who had stumbled upon a dark castle secret by the higher-ups, and then threatened to expose them. So the Earl then got the guards to cut out her tongue and kill her. Now some also dub her as the Sobbing Woman. And she's more so seen on like moonlit nights. She scares anyone who walks the castle grounds, or any guards patrolling them. Now, Sir David Bowes-Lyon, he was the first to hear about the tongueless lady, because he was a young boy, and this kind of happened when he was outside the castle grounds. He stared up at the window there, and he seen a woman. She had a pale face. It's almost as if she was like looking for help, so he went inside the castle to look for the woman. And there, he heard a heavy breathing from the other side of the door, directly in front of him. So then, it kind of opened up, like it swung open on its own. So he was in shock and awe when he seen a woman staggering out through the doorway. She had a huge bag on her back. She walked past him, and she ventured on through the trees out of sight. I mean, that's kind of spooky. I mean, not saying anything, and away you go. Gone through the woods, you never seen again. Now, next up, we're going to talk about the Grey Lady. Now, this happens at the Chapel of Glamis, which was built between 1679 and 1683. This is located in the northeast corner of a wing. Now, the interior of the chapel has wall and ceiling paintings painted by a Dutch artist named Jacob de Witt. Now, present day, the interior of the chapel here, it's open to the public, but photography is not permitted, and it has 2 other doors that lead into the chapel. Usually, when you hear chapels, it's usually good things like a place of solace and peaceful surroundings, but this place is totally haunted. The sighting of a ghost in the chapel is believed to be a woman by the name of Janet Douglas. She was born in 1498. She was born of the Douglas clan, and that's a clan that actually fell out of favor with King James V around 1528. Now, Janet's brother, his name was Archibald VI. He was Earl of Angus. Now, Archibald was the king's stepfather. Now, in 1518, Archibald had imprisoned a younger James. This was until 1528 when James had escaped. And then Archibald was exiled from the lands. So all his hatred and shit ended up focusing on Janet. Now, 3 charges were laid against her for use of magical powers. And with her high connections throughout the royal families and whatnot, the charges were dropped and they couldn't proceed. And I can kind of see where the king's hatred comes into this. I mean, the guy was king and he was overthrown by his stepfather. But he did rule Scotland for a bit there, and then he was exiled, and he went back to England. But tales were spun about Janet making potions and having a hand in other black magic. So she was accused of trying to poison the king. So they mean, this is a very high charge, but to get her charged with witchcraft would be very crafty. Now the king gathered up all her clansmen and her servants, and he began to torture them. So this would be to get them to give false statements against her. And Janet's own son, John, who was 16, he was made to watch these horrific tortures, and even being tortured himself. And the king was able to gather up confessions from the people that he tortured. With the charges now sticking to Janet for witchcraft and everything, she was held in prison at Edinburgh Castle. So she and her son had been sentenced to death around July 17th, 1537. Now, upon coming out of prison to be sentenced to her death, mainly for her witchcraft and poisoning charges, which most of the town folk thought were just terrible charges, right? They knew she didn't do any of that, because she was just a nice woman. Now, she was burned at the stake alive, while onlookers grew silent. Everybody had respect for her. But people began to talk after her death that her death was simply just because it was an act of pure hatred for her brother Archibald by King James. Now, Lady Janet of Glamis' son, John, he had been waiting for his execution, so he was stuck in prison. He had been released upon the death of King James V on December 14th, 1542. Parliament had restored Glamis Castle back to him, but when he returned to the castle, there was nothing of value left. King James had taken it all. So after the execution of Janet, that's when the Grey Lady sightings started to appear. So she was showing up around the clock tower and Castle Glamis. There can also be sounds of knocking, they can be heard around there. So some say that it's the sounds of hammers, and these are the ones that were used for the scaffold on which she was burned on. So, pretty cool stuff, huh? And I just want to go back here, to Earl Beardy here for a sec. I mentioned that he was a pretty cruel dude. So, on one account, he was bored with a few of his friends. So he began to think of a way to have fun, have some laughs, get some entertainment. So they seen one of the servants passing by, and they used their authority over him just to make him strip down naked, and then they forced him to run around the castle grounds. This went on for some time, but then he began to be chased by the Earl and his guests, and then it became more of a hunt than anything. Now, after outrunning the men, they thought it would be fun to release the dogs, so they started chasing after the lad. But the dogs caught up to the servant, and they ripped him to pieces. Now, before the Earl and his guests, kind of finished with everything, they just laughed at the horrible act. The servant totally just got ripped apart. But now, the servant's spirit can be seen running around in full terror throughout the castle. So, it's as if he's trying to escape these dogs.
If you like paranormal, true crime, cryptids, or anything else weird, check out the Ouch Was That a Ghost podcast brought to you by your host Liss. You can find Ouch Was That a Ghost on Spotify, Apple, or any other audio platform. New episodes drop every Thursday.
I didn't really give you guys a background on the castle or anything here. So I just want to give you guys an idea about how big it was and all about the castle grounds here. Those were pretty huge. I mean, that servant dude had to run pretty fast to, outrun those dogs, which he didn't do, but now the whole castle land is about 14,000 acres. So that's 56 square kilometers. It had gardens, walking trails, and even a farm that was located on the property just so they can grow their own food. There's a plantation there that would keep them in wood for resources and whatnot. They had a planted forest and an arboretum. That was also located next to the property here, and it was right by one of two streams. Now, an arboretum is come on, brain. It's a place specifically designed for trees, and most of the trees that were located there had all come from different parts of the world. And lastly, folks, quick little tale here. It's believed that Malcolm II was murdered at Glamis. Now, this was back in 1034 on November 25th. So, before it was Glamis, it was known as the Royal Hunt Lodge. So, the king was wounded in battle, taken back to the Royal Hunt Lodge, and then he died. And later on, when construction of Glamis Castle was going to be begun, it was built over the same spot as where the lodge once stood. So, I mean, there's all your spookiness and everything there, too. And the other thing here, there's a little bit of folklore. This is about a servant girl. Now, she was a vampire, and she got caught feeding on a victim in the castle. So she was then captured and sealed within the walls. And now she sleeps until somebody locates her room. And then, after that, she's free again. Well, I think I covered a little bit of scary stuff here for you guys, so thank you very much for tuning back in. That's all I got. I'll see you again. And just one last thing here. So, I met a few podcasters along the way, and everybody's just awesome, so I wanted to put their links to their show in my episode descriptions. So if you scroll through this on Spotify, click the link, and it'll bring you to my friend's shows. So give them a rating and a follow. I mean, they're all good people, so everybody has different stories, different tales, so it's good that they all get spread around. Cool, thanks.
Twisted Tales.